Uh, this video, my name is Dr. Rufus Jimerson, and this video is about my book called Africa's Hegemony During Europe's Middle Ages, Its Collapse and Modern Resurgence, Part 1 of 3. Alright, so I'm only giving you this is a preview of 3 parts of the 3-part preview of the book. Alright, the purpose of this book, written by Dr. Rufus O. Jimerson and available at Amazon.com books, is to identify and describe how Africans developed the world's leading empires from the spread of the Kemet Nubian civilization on the African continent during the Middle Ages. Subsequently, Black Moors spread this civilization to Europe by seizing the Iberian Peninsula, Sicily, and villages on the coast of Ireland and the North Sea. They became the progenitors of a Moorish lineage of nobles that through inbreeding maintained Afroid features well into the 19th century. And we're talking about the royalty of Europe being established by black Africans, the Moors. These blue bloods, light-skinned blacks whose blood appeared blue as it flowed through their veins, brought about the depopulation, this is the problem, of Africa, destruction of its advanced civilization, and exploited its natural resources to bring Europe and its Caucasian majority out of the Dark Ages. Motivated by a lust to maintain and expand their wealth, power, and privilege, these biracial European monarchs inadvertently unleashed a bourgeois or middle class from revived trade and commerce, through revived trade and commerce, that represented the white European underclass, which would rebel and displace their absolute rule. In other words, they put wealth and power well before any kind of connection with Africa other than that Moorish line. They became detached from any global sense of blackness. All right, they're wannabes or Oreos or today's black conservatives. The first step in the rise of the bourgeois and the governance by popular consent was to demand an end to the Moorish monarchs' heredity and procure hold on the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church. These reformers were labeled as heretics and sought by the Holy Roman Emperors, who were of the March line, and other Moorish Catholic monarchs for torture, coerced confessions as wards of the Antichrist, and executed. And you secretly, or more covertly, these royalties, as you can see in the old churches, were still held worshiping black Madonnas, Christ, and disciples, saints. Nobles protected, they didn't lose that detachment to Africa. They put wealth and power well over color. Nobles protected some of these church reformers. Some of the nobles that were attached to Germanic or what you call in the History Channel barbarians included they protected Martin Luther from the consequences of his alleged heresy. They were able to form their own denomination under that protection and translate the Bible into their native tongue. And for these migratory Europeans that were German, mostly German, it was in German. We speak Middle German. English is Middle German. The German people speak High German, and most of Europe, other than that, surely in the Latin countries, speak a Lower German, all right, mixed with Latin. They were able to form their own denominations under protection and translate the Bible into their native tongue. The actions of these reformers spurred ethnocentrism and nationalism that reinforced white resentment against blue blood is black rulers. The Moorish Holy Roman emperors led a crusade to restore the absolute rule of both the church and their own monarchies. Massive resistance produced the 100-Year Wars, 30-Year Wars, and a struggle for a constitutionally restricted monarchy which broke the absolute rule of the Afroid nobility or royalty. This account of history debunks white supremacy. It does make a case for which is deep and persistent hatred of blacks by Europeans, and particularly by Americans, in a nation made up by white refugees of the Moorish rule that lasted into the 19th century. Intergenerational hatred exhibited by these descendants of refugees from tyranny and poverty in the old world imposed on them by black royals turned their animus into one of the harshest and inhumane slavery and post-slavery mistreatment in the history of the world. Ironically, in the 21st century, blue bloods and other admixtures are rising again to lead the New World Order. Race is becoming irrelevant as a determinant of superiority to explain hegemony over other groups of people. Racism is then an excuse for economic and psychological exploitation of people at Afroid or other features for those perceived as Caucasian. It does have intergenerational roots based on white resentment drawn from tyranny imposed by Afroid rulers upon Europe's underclass under these monarchs. The evidence gathered and interpreted respects this research strongly suggests that power, its abuse, hegemony, greed, hubris, deprivation, and rebellion are not the exclusive domain of any particular racial group that has experienced the rise and the fall of civilization. Pursuit of the truth frees the seekers from preconceived biases by and for the ruling class. Now, I'm going to provide the evidence, some of the evidence in this respect. All right? Here we see the great, massive, powerful civilizations of Africa during the Middle Ages, where most Europeans were living in utter poverty and ignorance, outside the Moorish held territories that are in the Iberian Peninsula, that is Spain, Portugal, and Sicily. Next, we see more of the same great massive civilizations that were rich and powerful civilizations of Africa during the Middle Ages. We're talking about from 500 AD, after the death of Christ, all the way up into around 1500 AD, about 500 years ago, when African slavery changed all this. Again, we see the Moorish holdings. Okay, let me move it around a little bit, and you can see Moorish civilization and those involved. All right. Here we see the inventor of deodorant and hygiene that was spread to Europe, because before they wouldn't even wash, never mind use deodorant and hygiene, until the Moors brought that to their civilization. They also, the Moors brought great architecture. You can see in Cordoba, Spain. You can see that and get that one in. All right, you can see that. Here, the first surgery in Europe was performed and brought to Europe by the Moors. You can see that. Without me moving around so much. All that's provided in this book. Alright, the great knights of Europe at that time were black. The black knights. They were the heroes. They were the saints, as depicted. It's in the book. I know I'm moving around a little bit. Here, the progenitors of the nobility, the ones that started nobility and royalty, their line is still there, is in their particular, you can see, are black Moors. Okay, you can see that. All right. Here is Saint Maurice meeting the Pope. Here he is meeting the Pope. Here's another one of Saint Maurice. They had a lot of Saint Maurices still there in Europe, among the artifacts, all, and they try to say it's a one, but there's many. So there's many black knights. The first black head of states, Alessandro de' Medici, is depicted here. First black head of state, Alessandro de' Medici, in the book. Saint Benedict the Moor is also depicted here. Saint Benedict the Moor. Here's a snapshot of Saint Benedict the Moor. You can see that. Alright, that gives you an idea of what's in the book. Part 1, we have 2 more other parts that will show you some more of the evidence that's collected in the book. These are photographs or images of artifacts that are found throughout the old world, throughout Europe into Russia, and kept as sacred to the inhabitants. This history has been denied because those heroes, those saints, and the connection to the royalties definitely mirror the black Moors and black Africans, which are considered in this society, American society, to be an inferior group. Excuse me, my hiccup. Sorry, that's it. Look forward to part 2 and 3.